We are an interfaith gathering, a spiritual community that honors all teachings and all spiritual teachers. And now we begin the ceremony that celebrates this oneness of life, which acknowledges that all peoples and all faiths come for the one universal presence, which we call spirit. Our candle lighters this morning are Zoe and Azalea. So let us begin. The Tao, honoring the universal path of harmony and equilibrium, the natural way. Shamanic traditions, honoring the beliefs and practices of all indigenous peoples, the way of pristine spirituality. Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. Buddhism, honoring the Four Noble Truths and the path of compassion. Christianity, honoring the Christ consciousness as the path of love. Islam, honoring the path of submission to the will of God as the highest calling.
We're submitting to God right now.
You're doing a wonderful job of breathing into this moment. New Thought, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles. The last candle is the healing candle of love. We invite you in the stillness of your own mind to bring to awareness the names of anyone you wish to be included in this healing flame of love and light. Now that our flames of faith are fully lighted, we move forward into our celebration, realizing and reaffirming that all paths lead to God. And so it is.
So it is. Those of you who are watching online this morning, good morning. I asked Reverend Don what the theme was for August, and he said purpose and passion. And I immediately thought of this great song by Graham Parker, Passion is No Ordinary Word. And that is the title of my talk this morning. And then, of course, I had to sit with that and ask myself, well, why do I believe that passion is no ordinary word? And I came to realize that I believe that is true because passion comes from an extraordinary source. Passion is, as was in the reading this morning, the divine urge. It is the very essence of life itself. And the good news is that it is nestled at the center of our own beingness. I believe the particular and specific location of passion is the heart, because it's a feeling. I always like to say the heart is the brains of the operation, right? And so passion is a feeling. So I always like to do the deep dive into what these words mean when I connect with you like this, just so that we can be on the same page, but also to make sure that these definitions still work for us, because many of these definitions go back quite a long time. So I consulted with Merriam-Webster, and according to Merriam-Webster, passion refers to a strong feeling of enthusiasm or excitement, either for something or about doing something. an intense emotional state or a love for something or someone. And that immediately made me think of the Creator. Because, you know, I like to say that the thing itself is this love intelligence that knows all because it is all. And that is true. However, now I realize that it's also passionate. Because really, what else but passion could have put the stars in the sky in the shape and form of people and animals for our own delight and joy? What else could have stuffed the rose in a bud except a Creator that was passionate about beauty? You think about the flowers and the unlimited variety and all the colors and the rainbows. Passion. And that's why I love that idea that passion is also the divine urge. I mean, seriously, what else but passion could cause a seed to crack open, go through the difficulty of the dense dirt simply to express itself? And the word enthusiasm, the root of that word is full of God. So you can see how suddenly all of this comes together in a very mystical and perfect way. But I dove a little deeper. The word passion is derived from the Latin word passionem, which means suffering and enduring. And in the articles I was reading about passion and living a passionate life and how to find your passion and all of that, many of them said, after including that definition, that this is why Jesus' crucifixion is referred to as the Passion. But Ernest Holmes was very clear that we are not here to suffer. And so that caused me to look up the word enduring. Because though Jesus certainly endured, the tendency for the collective is to be a little bit more focused on his suffering. And I thought it would be interesting to see what endure meant. That word goes back 1,500 years. But there it is again, to undergo or suffer. We've got to figure out how not to suffer. The original root meaning of the word meant solid, hard, and able to stand the test of time. And I went in one level deeper. The Proto-Indo-European root meaning of the word endure is be firm, solid, steadfast, and long-lasting. Now, certainly when you're living a passionate life or you're doing something with passion, you have to be steadfast. You have to endure the obstacles that naturally come onto our path, right? But then I was thinking just about the word passion. And I realized, you know what? Passion is long-lasting. Why? Because it comes from an infinite source. Passion as a thing is long-lasting, like a pilot light, because its source is eternal. And I think it's really important to see passion just as itself before we talk about being passionate and living passionate and working passionately, because to me, it's important for us to remember that passion is that pilot light, that spark of light that never goes out. However, when we are in difficult times, when we're going through dark nights, passion is the last thing on our minds. At least that was the truth for me. Never came into my radar. I mean, when you feel dead inside, you don't feel passion. But I can see now that because I have people who love me and I reached out for prayer, and mostly they reached towards me, that what they were doing was they were fanning that pilot light of passion, because I couldn't. And so if you are in a space where you can't do it yourself, that's the reason why we talk about prayer. Reach out. Sometimes it's just a hug that will fan the flames of passion within you. So wherever you are is wherever you are. You know, it was kind of fascinating reading these articles, living with passion, finding your passion. I was exhausted. I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of work. Another idea for passion is giving my all. Maybe that's just a little simpler, a little less intense, a little easier. Giving my all to life. Something to consider. But I definitely believe that passion is an internal motivator. And it's taken me a couple of years to not just fan the flame, but get the flame roaring again. I mean, I'm pretty clear about my passions because I know how I feel when I'm passionate. This is one of my passions right now. You can feel the passion I have for the science of mind and spirit. We can feel when we're passionate about something or someone. They say in these articles, we've heard it, that when you do what you love, it's not work, right? And I have a friend, my friend Curtis is that way. He's a pilot. His father was a pilot. He was a pilot, before he even came into form, right? And he had the opportunity to take me and a friend to Katmai, and he said on that trip to one of the other guests, I've never worked a day in my life. Because he lives out his passion, which is flying. And if you can do that, or you have done that, that's great. However, not everybody can right now. Some people simply have to work a job in order to make ends meet, as they say. My particular side hustle right now is not necessarily my passion, but I am able to be passionate about it. You feel the difference? Everybody can at some point express passion in that which they do because it's who you are. It's not in the thing you're doing. It's not in your work. That's a way in which you feel yourself being passionate. But I want to relax that idea that we got to find it, we got to discover it, we got to live it. It's got to be, let's just have the experience of us feeling passionate again, because the last couple of years, it's been a little rough, right? I mean, I'm sure there have been moments when we all have felt passionless over these last couple of years. And that's what happens when something is deconstructed. That's what happens when things collapse. That's what happens when things die away, that when there are endings. The pilot light gets small. But in the rebuild, in the reconsideration, in the restructuring is where we find our passion because of how we feel. So if your work isn't your passion, perhaps you can be your passion itself at your work. And then maybe look to hobbies, because when I was sitting in the seats and people were talking, I was happy to be inspired. But at some point I'm like, give me the how. All right, how do I do this? So one of the ways that you can experience passion, try some new things. Go out and go bowling or do something different that you've never done before, strictly for the purpose of seeing how it makes you feel. Because there is nothing quite as fulfilling and rewarding than doing what you are here to do. So it is a worthwhile effort. It is worth your time to consider what your passions are. In another article, they talked about how if you can contemplate or go back to your childhood before you were told what to love, before we were told who to love, right? And if you can remember seeing yourself getting lost in the time, what were you doing? The woman in one article was talking about how she was in love with puzzles. Now, it wasn't that her life was going to be about puzzles, but what she drew out of that observation was that she liked fitting things together. She had an analytical mind. She liked solving problems, which I thought was a really fresh way to consider how what we did as children can become or have clues about what our passions are. So that's something to consider. For me, I do believe it takes a little bit of courage to live out your passion. For me, I could have, because the narrative was there, I could have said, forget it. It's enough that I'm back. I'm not going to live out my passions anymore. But the thing with passions, it's like this. Hello? Anybody listening? No. Louder. Hello? Hello? Right? So at some point, we have an opportunity to pause and listen and feel the fear of that knocking. Because sometimes it is accompanied by fear. Why? Because you got to step out of your comfort zone. Or at the very least, you have to step out of society's designed comfort zone for us in order to live your passion. But it's worth it. Because if you think about passion as a gift from the Creator, if you think about passion as the divine urge in you, it's kind of a game changer to the idea of passion. Then it just becomes, how am I expressing myself? Some people are passionate about cooking. Some people are passionate about, connecting. Some people are passionate about their friendships. We all have something that lines us up with that feeling of passion. So I have spent, and I am still spending, a little less time, but certainly time, bringing compassion to my doubts, bringing compassion to my fears, because it's got a very strong narrative from my past. Are you going to spend all that time doing that again? Look at all the work you did. It didn't really yield the results you wanted. You get so much work, you got nobody to, on and on and on it goes. Why? Because it wants to protect me from failure. It wants to protect me from disappointment, which is what I grew up in. An effort to keep us tapped down. Don't dream too big, then the fall won't be too hard. It never crossed anybody's mind that you may not fall. Or if you did, as they say, you'd fly, right? So we all have these narratives about living a passionate life and what our passion is. I ask you today to be mindful of any narrative that makes that stressful for you or fills you with anxiety, because that's not what it's about. It's simply about us taking some time to tap into how we feel about ourselves. What if we were just passionate about ourselves? I mean, seriously. I was talking to somebody yesterday who is very important to me, and they want love in their lives, but they're afraid because their hearts hurt. But yet they said, but it's what I really want. That's the passion. That's the heart's language. It's what I really want. And when it comes to love or life, you got to roll the dice sometimes, because that's just the way it is. But when your heart speaks so clearly to you, that's your passion. Just at the very least, give it a listen. Give it the respect of your time. Even if you don't do anything with it right now, it's giving you hints about how you can feel. And I feel that now is the time for some passion. I mean, for me, passion is creativity. Like, I was thinking about that before I even got to the divine urge part. So that just brings us full circle as I come around this morning. That really, if you want to activate passion, do something creative. Again, when we were kids, I'd love to see hands if it was true for you. It was pretty clear pretty early on who was creative and who wasn't. And it seemed to be, in my experience, that they were creative and I wasn't. I'm sure it's not a surprise. I wasn't one to color in the lines, right? I was outside of the lines. And in that tight compartment that was our upbringing, that wasn't creative, right? I ask you today to banish that programming, because it's not possible. Everyone is creative, because we all have the divine urge within us. And the divine urge itself is creation. It's creativity. And that to me is a really powerful thought. So whether it's a crayon or a paintbrush, right? Whether you're dancing in your kitchen or dancing in a ballroom, whether you're singing in the shower or singing with the choir, begin. let yourself loose. As we heard in the sacred reading today, give yourself permission to play, to draw, to sing, to dance, to go try a hobby, go to a paint class, go to a pottery class, specifically to see how you feel. Because that's the question of these times. How do I want to feel? And I think a lot of us are ready to feel alive again. A lot of us are ready to feel our passion again. And we need it. I mean, right? We need more people willing to live again. We need more people willing to dream again. We need more people willing to be passionate again about the rebuild that we're in. You can be in the burning building, you can be in the collapse, you can be in the deconstruction of the old way. For a lot of people, that's actually their purpose, to be a part of that. But there's also people whose purpose is to be a part of the rebuild, to be a part of the new design for living, to be part of the positivity that is needed. So I leave you with this thought. Instead of having passion, see, because we've seen passion for hate, haven't we? Pretty regularly, pretty consistently. We've seen the passion for hate. But who's going to have the passion for love? Is it going to be you? I hope so. Even if you stand alone, know in that moment you're really not. There's millions of other people right now standing for love. We've seen the passion for judgment, horribly so. It's becoming law. Judgment is becoming law. We see passion in that way. But who's going to be for passion in the form of compassion? We see passion in the form of separation and division, big time. People are talking about it, there's headlines about it. Passion created division and separation in our country right now. Who's going to stand for oneness and unity? Who's going to have passion for community? You know, I think it was Marianne Williamson, one of the people out there saying, we have to have as much passion and as much fervor for love and peace and community as the others have for these experiences I just noted. So that's my invitation to you. Instead of having passion for gossip, which is the lowest vibration as it relates to how we use the word, because the word is creative. The word is the divine urge expressing. And we can do it in a form of gossip. We can do it in the form of self-criticism. Or we can do it in the form of prayer. We could do it in the form of affirmations. We could do it in the form of affirmative narratives. Because this person I was talking to yesterday actually said that they didn't feel like they were enough for love. I mean, I think that's a pretty common experience because it's a program. It's not true. I mean, Zoe just sang that song, You Are Enough. We have to wake up. Well, you don't have to do anything. I have awakened to the programming. It's programming. And that's good news because you can reprogram the program. Mm-hmm. So be mindful of what your mind is saying about your enoughness. Be mindful of what your mind is saying about your passion. Be mindful about what your mind is saying about your heart. And ask yourself, is that true? Or is that a program? Is that really accurate? Or is that just leftover residue from my upbringing? Because that is where you'll find your passion, buried underneath the weight of all that false programming that maybe served at the time, but it definitely is not serving us today. What's serving us today is community, connection, and passion. Passion simply for life. My dear friend Bobby Lee is here. And It's wonderful to have him here. He and I met each other here many, many years ago. Bobby is one of the most effortlessly passionate people that I know. Not because of anything that's happening in the external world, but because of his internal world. Bobby is one of the most effortlessly positive people that I know, even when there's some challenges, because he has developed a consciousness and an attitude filled with passion for life. It isn't hard, unless it is. But I say it's quite simple, because it is part of the very nature of our beingness. So let's take a moment and experience the passion that we can feel and hear in this thing we call affirmative prayer. And I would like you all right now to feel and see yourselves as the prayer, as the one with the divine urge within you, even in the silence of your mind, to speak the word. And so here in our philosophy, we have these 5 steps. We recognize the thing itself. We identify ourselves as the thing. And from that place, we speak the word of creation. You know, in our practitioner studies, I remember very clearly, because there was a game changer for me, that Ernest Holmes talked about the fire in the belly. To me, that's another word for passion, right? And he talked about that in a way that was, when you do your first step of prayer and you do your second step of prayer, you will know when it's kicked a fire off in your belly. And I loved that. Oh my gosh, I would hang out in the first and second parts of prayer for a super long time, because I just loved feeling those engines starting to roar. And it really was an organic moment when you went right into prayer, because the power and the fire is so strong, the passion is so strong that it has a volition all its own. So let's take a minute and close our eyes. And if you feel comfortable putting your hand on your heart, always to remember that we have one. We have an emotional heart and a physical heart. And join me in knowing that when we talk about the thing itself, we're talking about an intelligence that knows all because it is all. That this intelligence had such enthusiasm and excitement for its own self-expression that it created all that we experience with our senses. That is some passion. That this intelligence is awake right now. It's aware because it's an intelligence. It's responding directly to us, and it's also responsive through us. It's whole. It's complete. It lacks nothing. It has everything necessary and the way to make it so. We are that thing. We are one with that life. We are it. There is no other. It is within us, and we are within it, which means we carry within us all of those qualities. We don't believe in a God that's separate. We believe we are the divine urge within us. And I'd like us to particularly activate the feeling of love right now, because love is a power and it's a presence. And I'd like us to collectively join the millions of people all over the world right now that are beaming love to those in Maui. And I would like us to particularly concentrate our imagination and see the outpouring of love to those people on the island of Maui whose lives have been devastated by that fire. Let us see the ongoing outpouring of financial help for the rebuild that must happen in order for there to be life again. Let us use our love for people and our understanding of what has happened there, to see an outpouring of support. We're already seeing it. People from the other islands coming over by boat, making a human chain to the boat, sending supplies to the island. We are so powerful. We do not have to wait for devastation to activate the kindness and the compassion and the love that we have for each other. It is our divine nature to be together. And so we hold that love for anyone, anywhere, individually or collectively, that is going through a difficult time right now. Let us hold each other's hands as we walk through this time of massive change and reorganization, so that something more fitting to the design model we have in our hearts can emerge as our everyday life. For those who may be experiencing dis-ease, we do not deny the broken leg. However, as Ernest said, at some point we must turn away from the effect of the leg being broken in order to put our attention on the perfect prototype that is back behind that broken leg. Let us take this moment to use our affirmative thoughts and words to know that in the midst of our own difficulties, that something is for us. Something is putting together a better way. There is something we can rely on. And more importantly, there is something that we can call forth. And that is what we are doing today. We are commanding this intelligence. We are giving it a very specific mold to fill. And I ask this intelligence that is nestled at the center of each of us to activate our passion and to show us the way that we are all saying today, show me the way. Say that out loud. Show me the way. Say it out loud. Show me the way to my passion.
Show me the way to my passion.
Help me remember how passion feels.
Help me remember how passion feels.
And take a breath. And so with a grateful heart now, I release that seed, and I know that the law, the divine urge, is gathering up everything necessary now to make it so, individually and collectively. And we are super grateful to understand this and to utilize it for not only our good, but for the greater good of all humanity. Join me in passionately saying, and so it is.